Alright, so it doesn't look like we have any questions necessarily, so we're just going to actually just jump right over into the screen capture here, and let's talk about the Beholder. So, the Beholder, it is a large aberration, lawful evil. So, when we think about lawful evil creatures, we think of things that have rules, but they're still very evil. Like, they do really bad things, but there's order to the bad things. So if we look at the stat block just in general, armor class 18, all natural armor from that kind of like exterior leathery kind of skin that it's got going on there. Got 180 hit points, which is a pretty chunky amount of hit points. And keep in mind, this is a challenge rating 13 creature, so that should make a lot of sense to us when we think about like just kind of the progressions and the different tiers. You know, challenge rating 13 creature is going to have a good chunk amount of hit points. But even still, like, we know a lot of player characters that can actually just jump right through a lot of these like kind of high HP creatures, so it's one of those things where I take it with a grain of salt, but I look more at the actions that it has, which the Beholder in this case has a lot of actions in its stat block that are going to be really, really key to its survival and its effectiveness, which we'll get in here in a little bit. So speed 0, so it doesn't actually walk, but it hovers at 20 feet per round. It rolls a +2 initiative. Pretty good stat array. Physical characteristics, big one just being con, which makes a lot of sense. But the intelligence, wisdom, and charisma are going to be very high, with its saving throws in all three of those categories, just because of the fact that it is a very smart, pseudo-omniscient being, I guess is the best way to put it. Let's see here. And then we also have a nice perception here of a +12. Bonus knowledge you can grab, but a bad idea. So condition immunity is prone because all it does is hover. Senses, we've got dark vision. We've got passive perception here that's very high thanks to that really high wisdom score. With a perception, a perception skill bonus right here as well. And then we have, when we get into these actual actions and abilities here. So let's talk about the anti-magic cone. So the anti-magic cone is a very interesting little piece of the Beholder that not necessarily people forget about, but it's a very interesting kind of manipulative kind of ability that can really ruin a party's day. So if you have a lot of spellcasters in your party or a lot of magic items in your party, this works on magic items, you'll have a little bit of a bad time. If you look at this thing, we have this anti-magic field spell. So basically, it's a nice invisible sphere of anti-magic in a cone. Basically, any creatures that are in the magic or the anti-magic cone are gonna not be able to, you know, use their magical abilities, which is kind of scary, just in general for most people. The area also works against the Beholder's own eye rays. So it's kind of one of those things where it also can't hit anything in its anti-magic cone. So it's one thing to keep in mind as a dungeon master and as a player character, which the player characters probably won't necessarily know this unless they do some research about these Beholders, but as a dungeon master, you have to keep in mind, you can't actually hit anything that's in your anti-magic cone with your eye ray. So, things to keep in mind. And that's basically based on this anti-magic field spell, which we'll just take a quick look at. Basically, anything that goes into the sphere will have no effect on that target. Areas of magic, like a fireball, magic items, they're going to be suppressed, like the longsword, magical travel, basically everything. So, just things to keep in mind when you're thinking about that. So that's why these things, when they can't actually target anything in the field, that's why. As far as its actions, let's get to actions first. So we've got a +5 to hit on our melee weapon attack from our +5 to our, I assume because we're challenge rating 13, is just from a +5 to our proficiency bonus. Because it doesn't look like the bite attack would come from our dexterity, so we'll make that assumption here. We've got a reach of 5 feet, and we've got a 14 average damage and a 4d6 piercing damage. But that's not really what Beholders are all about. If they're using their bite, they're in a really bad spot. They want to use these eye rays, so they can actually use one action to use 3 of these eye rays, re-rolling duplicates, and choosing 3 targets it can see within 120 feet of it. So, we're going to go through each one of these, and kind of the ways you want to use them against your party. So, we got the Charm Ray. DC 16 Wisdom save, or be charmed by the Beholder for an hour. So this is a great way to kind of get these, they can't hurt you, and you have the ability to interact with them socially at advantage. So they're not going to attack you, so they're just basically going to be like, hey, this Beholder, let's get to know him, let's figure out what he's all about. That's kind of the general idea for your Charm Ray. Paralyzing Ray, oh, keep in mind, as a DM, you can actually just pick 3 random eye rays. You don't actually have to roll them if you don't want to, so keep that in mind. You're the DM. You're allowed to do whatever is advantageous to you in that situation. Paralyzing Ray. We've got a con save, or paralyzed for a minute. paralyzed condition, they're incapacitated, they automatically fail strength and dex saves. Attack rolls against the creature have an advantage. Attack that hits with the creature is a critical hit if the target is within 5 feet of the creature. So, we're auto-critting anything that's paralyzed. Kind of like your stunning strikes and all that kind of stuff that you see on Critical Role. That's kind of where this comes in. Very good for the Beholder if they have minions. Very big for them to have this ability here. When we think about Charm Ray too, by the way, this doesn't necessarily also affect the minion, like the ability to hit charmed minions of the Beholder, but the Beholder will probably try to convince you to not do so under that charm. Fear Ray, so they can become frightened into the Beholder or they just become frightened for a minute. They'll have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls while its source of fear is within sight. They can't willingly move closer to the Beholder as a result. They can repeat each saving throw at the end of each turn, and that's the same thing with this Paralyzing Ray. They can repeat the saving throw at the end of each turn as in the effect on a success. Generally speaking, though, with the charm, usually if they get hit, they lose their charm, so something to keep in mind. I have to check the ruling on that later on down the line, but just something to keep in mind there. Slowing Ray, on a failed save, their speed is halved for a minute. In addition, they can't take reactions. It can only take either an action or a bonus action on its turn, not both. And it can also redo its saving throw here. So this is a good one if you have a fighter, let's say, that has like multiple actions in a turn or something like that, or they're being able to get a lot of multi-attacks off. This is something the Beholder would probably use to his advantage to kind of slow that melee attacker down, just to keep him from using all of its actions. Enervation Ray, damage. Just straight up damage. It's going to do some necrotic damage on a Constitution save. So, something to keep in mind. Half as much on a normal save. 8d8 damage for an average of 36. So, pretty big, beefy kind of damaging output right there. Telekinetic Ray, strength save, or the Beholder moves the object 30 feet in any direction. Object's restrained and the Ray's grip by the Ray's grip, and they can't move they cannot. It's restrained by the grip, and at the start of the Beholder's next turn, until the start of the next turn of the Beholder, or if they're incapacitated, the Beholder is. If the target is weighing over 300 pounds or less, it can be moved 30 feet in any direction. It can also exert fine control of the objects with this Ray, such as manipulating a simple tool or opening a door or container. Sleep Ray. So, Wisdom save or fall unconscious for a minute. Cool. Fall asleep. No effect on constructs or undead. Petrification Ray. This is the one that's kind of scary. On a failed save, they turn to stone and are restrained. It must repeat the saving throw on its next turn. On a success, the effect ends. On a failure, the creature is then petrified. Basilisk for upper tier. It's a very kind of scary kind of Ray to kind of run across. Another one of these petrification type abilities with this Beholder. Disintegration Ray. This one's even scarier. So if you end up getting hit with this one, and if you're reduced to 0 hit points, you just become a pile of dust. You get disintegrated. Yeah, if target is large or smaller, non-magical objects or creation of magical force, it is also disintegrated. If the target is not magical. If the target is a huge or large object or a creation of magical force, it disintegrates a 10-foot cube of it. So basically, if you get hit by this thing, you're dead. If you drop to 0. So that's not good. Death Ray. Sounds exactly what it is. If you drop to 0, you're dead. So really, it's two Death Rays, to an extent. One turns into dust, the other one just kills you. This one does a lot of damage, this one doesn't do as much damage, but this one does a heck of a lot of damage. So, you want to get hit by this Enervation Ray if you're going to hit by any of the damaging ones. If you're a DM looking to use this against your party, generally speaking, with a challenge rating 13, you're probably putting this up against a higher level party. Things to just keep in mind with these different rays and this petrification and all that kind of, there's a lot of really like you're dead kind of eye rays with this Beholder. So Beholders are very famous for a number of things. There's a number of famous Beholders like Xanathar amongst others. They're very famous for being kind of these like weird tyrants with minions, but they also are very untrusting of others, and they're untrusting of actually other Beholders, which is actually kind of interesting. They tend to be very selfish individuals and are very skeptical, again, of others just because they think they are an all-powerful being and they think that everyone's out to get them as a result. So Beholders generally have lairs. Now when it's in its lair, it's going to create a challenge rating 14 monster, so things to keep in mind. And the reason why it has these kind of defenses in its lair is because, again, it's very paranoid that there's other people out to get him. So When fighting in the lair, they can use lair actions on initiative count 20, where one of them is a 50-foot square area of ground, becomes difficult terrain until the next round. Another one, a wall. Walls kind of come up that sprout grasping appendages come out, and they can try to grab people and grapple them, which is fun. And then an eye opens on a solid surface within 60 feet, and one random eye ray shoots from that eye at the target at the beholder's choice that it can see. And then the door closes and disappears. Can't repeat an effect that they have already until they have all been used, and can't use the same effect 2 rounds in a row. So pretty cool there. Regional effects. They're, again, kind of these weird aberrant kind of creatures, almost alien in some nature, so they're going to create some unnatural kind of effects on the world around them. Creatures within a mile feel as though they're being watched, even though they aren't. When they sleep, minor warps in reality occur within 1 mile of its lair, and then vanish 24 hours later. Marks on cave walls change subtly, and then an eerie trinket might appear when none existed before, and slime might coat a statue, etc., etc. Again, these are xenophobic isolationists. They're tyrants. They have very alien layers. They're very much... I mean, they're very famous in D&D, just for being kind of like these, like, obviously really dangerous creatures, but also being these very isolationist, tyrannical, kind of creepy creatures that... generally speaking, are going to think everyone's an enemy. Now, there are things that you can check out within Volo's Guide to Monsters about how to roleplay your beholders. Sometimes if you plead fealty to a beholder, they might be okay with it, and they might think that if you might become a minion of theirs, they might be okay with it. But at the same time, they're also going to think that you might be out to get them. So things to keep in mind as you worry about these beholders in your game. So, for you DMs out there, I hope that was helpful. Just keep in mind, again, we got a very beefy creature. Probably going to get hit less than half the time unless they're up at this, unless your players are actually of decent challenge. Then they might hit him about 50% of the time. A lot of hit points, big stack of hit points. This anti-magic cone has a really big effect on a lot of your things in combat, especially where your eye rays can be, so keep that in mind. You're going to have to point that beholder in a certain direction to make sure that it works the right way. So it's going to be very challenging, especially when you are kind of going at it with your first beholder, so keep that in mind. There's a lot of really cool things. Oh yeah, we almost forgot the legendary actions. We got 3 legendary actions we can use where we can fire a random ray. So there's a cool one too that we can use at the end of another creature's turn. So I hope that was helpful. If you guys have any questions about the beholder, leave them in the comments or the quest board, which you see down there. I also stream on Mondays talking about different monsters and other Dungeons & Dragons stuff on Twitch. Link for that's also down in the description below. I also have a YouTube channel. Make sure you check that out. We actually stream a live game on Twitch, which is actually where we're on right now, on Wednesdays at 8:30. Check that out. And we actually go over a lot of things that we talk about here on stream. Again, I hope that was helpful for you guys, and until next time, happy gaming.